See the title slide?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So we are welcoming you to another QB Power Hour. Today, we're going to be talking about QuickBooks Cash and digital banking with Relay. And it's going to be an interesting, I'm really looking forward to this Power Hour because I learned so much about QuickBooks Cash today, building up to this webinar. Yoseph will be joining us from Relay, talking about some of the things, changing landscape with digital banking. And we also have some extra guests on top of that. Now, normally, Michelle will be joining us here today, but as you may or may not know, she has come down with the COVID, and she is recovering. So thankfully, we have friends out there, and Matt and Lynda are going to be joining us today as substitutes, which speaks to Michelle, takes two people to replace one person. My name is Dan DeLong. I'm the owner of DanWith, formerly of Intuit, technical editor for QBO for Dummies, and chief partner or chief content creator at schoolofbookkeeping.com. So I will hand it on over to Lynda to introduce herself.
I'm Lynda Artesani. I am the president of Artesani Bookkeeping, and I'm located in Southwest Florida. My niche is working exclusively with attorneys now. And I'm also the co-creator of QB Community Live, a Facebook group where we help other accounting professionals and business owners with issues, problems with their business.
And thank you for joining us today, Lynda. It's really appreciating you coming on today in such short notice too. And Matt?
Dan, we're always willing to jump in anytime we can to help either you or Michelle, of course. So our best wishes go out to Michelle and her family. We got your back until you come back, of course. So, but I'm Matthew Fulton with Parkway Business Solutions, as well as Vendor Sync, an application that is focused around QuickBooks Desktop. More importantly, I'm the co-creator of QB Community Live with my partner, Lynda Artesani, who already spoke this today. And we built a group that's focused around, accountants, bookkeepers, small business owners, tax professionals that believes in the idea that together we all succeed. So I'm honored to be here on QB Power Hour again. Thank you.
Yeah, and you guys, this year you both have come on twice, and so we couldn't have one of you winning.
Yes, you could. We talked about this.
Right. So it's a tie still.
Hashtag not competitive.
All right. And Yoseph West is also joining us. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course. Dan, thanks so much for having us. And Matthew and Lynda, thanks for jumping in. Obviously, it would be awesome to have Michelle here. She's such a big presence in the accounting community. So my background, I've been working in accounting and kind of bookkeeping kind of software for the past kind of 5 years. Prior to this, I led marketing at a company called HubDoc. I've just worked with accountants and bookkeepers for a long time and kind of saw the need for better business banking. And that's why we started Relay, which is really banking designed to enable growth, accelerate collaboration, kind of solve those kind of nasty, hairy problems that you experience with traditional banking. So excited to dive deeper today.
Awesome. Thank you again for being here today. So a little details about the QB Power Hour. It's a bi-weekly free webinar series. We have some of the upcoming webinars for the end of the year. We do have some days off that fall on holidays, so just kind of keep that in mind. But we're here to talk about QuickBooks tips, what's new, troubleshooting. So QuickBooks Cash is really going to fall into what's new, because especially for accountants and bookkeepers, a lot of people didn't realize that it actually was out there, and there's a reason for that, and we'll kind of talk about that during today's webinar. Now we have the PDF of the slides, as well as the recording links and the podcast. So our agenda today is we're really going to have a discussion about banking in general, because cash is king, and this time of year, or this season of business, it definitely plays a higher factor when we're talking about banks. And then there's some banking challenges that we as accounting professionals and bookkeepers and practitioners will have with dealing with the banks in general, and sometimes dealing with your clients, and some of the industry changes that we're seeing. And we're going to focus on a couple new banking options for that changing environment. QuickBooks Cash and Yoseph from Relay will be talking about their solutions as well. So we'll start off with a poll. So again, what version of QuickBooks are you using? I'll just go ahead and answer that, whether it's online or desktop or both. And then while you're answering that question, also, if you have a question, please do that in the Q&A section rather than the chat, because sometimes the chat is a little hard to manage when it comes to asking questions. But go ahead and put the Q&A in there. That way we can kind of manage that as the webinar goes on. So it looks like both is leading. Now, Matt and Lynda, you guys, Lynda, you solely use QuickBooks Online, right?
Yes, I'm a QBO only accountant.
And then in Parkway, Matt,
I'm a bother.
You're a bother.
Yeah, we primarily use online, of course. It's the efficiencies of it, but we also do work with desktop. We've got a special workflow we utilize when we're using desktop environment, but we're a bother.
Gotcha. Awesome. So we'll go ahead and
it's the right tool for the right job, right?
Right. You don't always need to use a hammer for your job, depending on how you use it. A hammer could be a great tool, or you could kill somebody. So we'll go ahead and end the poll there and share the results. So yeah, it looks like we got a lot of Matts out there. 69% using both. So let's go ahead and move on here. So the banking, and Matt and Lynda, if you want to kind of chime in here, banking is really important when it comes to working with your clients and reconciliation, and you, I would assume you would agree that it's kind of where you as accountants and bookkeepers really live is the bank, right?
It transformed our industry, if you think about it, right? So ever since back in the old days of accounting, now that we have these bank feeds, it literally transformed our entire industry. No longer do we have to wait for these paper statements to come around to find out what everything was about, to find out what the check images and all these different things are about. Nowadays, we have these bank feeds that can come through, give us the read-only access to transaction, that bank memo. And thanks to things like ACH, but electronic checks, everything else, we now can even get away from those paper checks, which is the pain in everybody accountant's rear. So,
and also, don't you think it really provides us with like real-time data? So if we're working with our client, we're able to truly give them like, and I don't know about you, Matthew, but I get clients like, my bank account says this, but my checkbook and QuickBooks says this. And I'm like, well, you got outstanding checks, you write checks, and there's outstanding checks, and you have to do a little bit of that. Some people, like, they live by that bank feed. They look at that number and it's like, it's their lifeblood. They know how much cash is in the bank. So a lot of that can tally right into, doing advisory services and cash flow projections, because now you're on top of the books, and probably not always a month behind like we were a long time ago.
Yeah.
Without the bank feeds, you're like right on the daily transactions that are coming in or happening in the client's file.
And the fact that it's so important, but it's so simple, like, a lot of business owners will just kind of look at it as a place to hold their money. But it's really like the hub of a wheel. Without that, nothing else happens. You have the money movement, but we have some issues that are out there. I have a client who has created a quagmire of transfers to avoid fees. They do that, and it's a matter of principle for her. She's like, they will never pay a bank fee. Like that is their goal is in life, is to outwit the bank and play by their rules. But it does seem like there's so many fees, and a lot of times when you do have to contact the bank, it's this wall of,
Yeah.
well, that's too bad.
Customer support, right? I mean, so customer support seems to be something that is gone by the wayside. And, it used to be, my mom actually used to run banks, ironically. So I remember every time we moved, I would go and sign up my bank wherever she was that she was managing the bank. And you get to know the people there. And if there was a question or a challenge, you'd reach out to your banker and they would take care of you. I mean, my grandfather said you have to know an accountant, a banker, an insurance person, I think was the other one. There's 3 different ones. But nowadays, like that relationship with a banker, it's gone. They don't know
Right.
who I am. They don't know who anybody else is.
And nowhere
Right.
did that show itself more than with the PPP stuff. People were, people were going to their bank if they were at, like, we had some pretty bad stories with some of the bigger banks, and they were ending up just going to a credit union because they got taken care of, which you find that more with the credit union, but then the bank feed's not as good. But a lot of times we had quite a few clients that went to get their PPP loan. The big bank didn't take care of them. They went to their local credit union. Now everything got moved to another bank because of that. So that's for certain. You lose that flavor. And I am old enough to remember the days where the banker knew who you were. You would go in and they would say hello, and it was a relationship. And now that's really not around anymore, especially now because of the situation we're in with COVID. You don't know until you've been going to the bank anymore. So it was kind of gone. And it's kind of sad in one way, but then we had to move on with technology. So
Right. And then when you think about, like 2008, and then if you did have a relationship with your bank probably changed hands 3, 4, 5 times. And then, well, there goes that relationship. So now you got to deal with, calling into a monster, huge mega bank, as Clark Howard would say. But really how it ends up impacting our business is in one of these 3 ways. Okay, well, you got to reach out to your client, ask them for their statements, and they send them via email. Well, that's not really secure. Or you got to share logins with your client, and banks have good security for good reason. I mean, my login was compromised one time, and I do not wish fixing that on anyone. But if you're sharing logins with your client, well, then you gotta, hey, can you give me this MFA code, or let me log in, or grant me access? And dealing with that kind of slows you down. Or you got the dreaded orange exclamation point in QuickBooks, where the bank feed has now been broken and you need to reconnect, which then leads to the first, back to the drawing board of talking with your client.
the bane of our existence when you log in, and then Intuit even made it easier. So you just kind of go on that one page and you can see, oh, Wells Fargo's having a problem here today, or Bank of America's. It's like, yeah.
It really is. So here's one of the biggest disconnects, right? So first off, I'm so tired of having to try to explain to clients what we mean by a read-only access accountant's login. Number one, right? Especially since if we're going to have an accounting platform that requires the client to be the one to make the connection on the flip side, there's like this conflict of ideas of, wait, I can provide you this information this way, but you still need me to log in and do it this way because of new APIs and things. It gets very confusing. Don't even mention the word API because you're just lost at that point. But
right.
It's the bane of our existence, the multi-factor authentication, MFA. It's important, it's necessary, but we need to have a better way to go about all this stuff. And I think that's actually where Relay is going to come into play later in the episode, right?
Yeah. And really just how that ends up, it's harder to help your clients, especially at that time when you are, doing your work. Now you've been derailed, and now you got to wait for something. And that just really slows your workflow, which then either you have to, pivot to something else, or ask, wait for, that roadblock to be alleviated. And then because that has really limited functionality, clients end up being overloaded with third-party tools, the bill pay and expense management, and getting a statement fetch, and all that to solve the problems of what is making things harder for just that movement of money, that simple thing, that simple hub. And really, because that collaboration is broken, then you end up having that liability for you and your practice, where they send a statement via email, and that gets intercepted or something along those lines, which is a big challenge for accounting professionals. So let's ask another poll here. So is your firm experiencing challenges with any of the below? So broken bank feeds, retrieving bank statements, or obtaining the check images. This is all the water cooler stuff that we end up talking about. Like one time at band camp, my bank, blah 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 blah. Right. So what is really a challenge for you, you and your firm?
I'm guessing you didn't put all of the above on purpose to truly get a better idea of
Well,
which one is the most pain point, right?
It is multiple selects, so they could check them all.
So there was one question just as you're doing this poll that came through that was saying that Intuit is not putting as much focus towards check numbers in the bank feeds. And I think where this may actually have to do with is ACH checks for some reason. They don't ever seem to capture the check number off an ACH correctly. An ACH, where it will have an independent number and have a description, you almost always have to go and put that check number in from the ACH since it's not coming from your checkbook. And my guess is it's probably around that area that's where you're having issues with the check numbers not showing up.
Yeah, maybe Yoseph, maybe you can answer that with how those things come in through the bank feeds through you guys.
Absolutely, we'll definitely go through that.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to close out the poll here and share the results. So yeah, broken bank feeds and managing and sharing logins for the bank. So they kind of go hand in hand. So when the bank feed is broken, you need to figure out how to reconnect that, and that usually involves getting the login. So we'll be talking a little bit about some of these problems that we have and maybe some solutions. So the way things are kind of changing. So opening the bank regulation, it's really support globally and in the U.S. Banks really have to be the drivers of increased data and portability in integration. And without that push, really incentives are unlikely to be a great motivator. I mean, I talked to my marketing guy in BNI, and he talks about, it really takes a lot to want to change banks. It's just like accountants, it's you really have to be annoyed with the bank in order to want to change the bank. But sometimes that last straw happens, and that you'll have that conversation. So this is an interesting fact that we discovered, that last year 55% of small business owners either changed or added their banks in 2019. So that conversation is actually happening with all of these changes that's happening. And Yoseph, there's really three different kinds of banking, the platform banking that we have listed here, the digital banking, and legacy digital. If you could kind of highlight what those actually are.
Absolutely. So just before we dig into that, I kind of want to talk about kind of the narrative around switching. I think from I don't know, maybe cultural is not the right word, but there's something about when we're asked to switch banks in our DNA that we're like, hold on, why should I switch banks? Why should I do that? And I think part of that reason is you think about, my experience at Wells Fargo, right? I know my experience at Wells Fargo is at best a 6 out of 10, right? That is, you ask people who are happy, they're like, yeah, it's great. I'm not switching, but it's like a 6. I don't like to live that way. I don't think a lot of people like to live that way, but that's the case. And when they think of switching, they think of switching from Wells to, say, Bank of America. And what is their confidence level that they're going to go from a 6 to an 8 or a 9? out of 10. I think it's very low. And so when we think of like switching being hard, it's hard in the context of like, I've got a poor set of options in terms of actually switching and making my experience better. And so what we see is, yes, 55% of small business owners changed or added banking relationships in 2019. The average SMB has 2.64 banking relationships, right? So you think about them having Wells Fargo, they have a credit union, they have a different kind of mishmash of banks. And when we see this type of churn or change across your client base, this is going to occur over the next 12 to 24 months, where half or more of your clients are actually going to change their banking relationship. And we don't consider it in the accounting and bookkeeping community that we could actually influence that conversation, make our practice better, make the experience for our clients better. And so that's what's really exciting about this. This is a challenge, certainly for the accounting and bookkeeping community, for all the kind of broken reasons that we went through, but it's also such an opportunity to kind of own the narrative and standardize the banking that you're leveraging for your clients. Cool. So platform banking. So you have QuickBooks Cash, you have Wave Money. We will see more of these kind of larger platforms offer like banking options. I would bucket these as like debit card extension kind of bank account products. It'll be very light. It'll be great for like the solopreneur that really just needs a bank account and a card. And workflows and collaboration really aren't a core focus for them. For these businesses, these are add-on products as opposed to core focuses. Think about it as kind of like QuickBooks Payroll versus Gusto would be the comparison. Digital banking, you obviously have Relay, obviously the best option. And then you have, so Relay is built more for like employer businesses or employer SMBs, so 2 to 100 employees. So we think of it as like banking for teams. Great to collaborate between yourself and your clients. North One, Novo, and Lily are more focused on the solopreneur freelancer. So you get, a bank account, a card, and really that's kind of the collaboration mechanism. And you're not getting kind of the accountant bookkeeper focus that we provide at Relay. And then Legacy Digital, Aslo, I would say it was actually one of the first digital banks for small business. And they're owned by BBVA out of Europe. And so they're, again, great for the freelancer, solopreneur. And that's really their focus.
Awesome.
Especially the European Union, they actually opened up their banking API. It became something they had to do a couple of years back, where the idea, the access to information, it's required out in the European Union, right? So I almost feel like we always talk about as accountants the ability to niche into different industries. Well, here's a new unique niche. Go move your clients to these platforms like Relay and show how much of a difference you can actually make for these clients by utilizing these services.
Yeah, Don in the chat put in we're in a small town area and the big banks aren't available. So we like our local banks, they have great service, but unfortunately some of the feed options just aren't available like big banks. So you have that good service with the bank, but then bad connection to your QuickBooks. And so they don't have the resources. They care, they care, unlike the big banks. But then they don't have the resources to be able to make your life as accounting professionals easier.
And one of the things you told me, Dan, was that with the platform banking, which I thought, oh, cool. Like Yoseph just said, it's like QuickBooks Online Payroll. It's inside the product. We can't see QuickBooks Cash as an accountant.
Yeah.
So they want the client to do all that back end work, which that's not good. Does not see that page. I don't think. I prefer to do the transactions for the clients easier than me going back and fixing what they didn't put in the right category. So I've tried both ways, and I made it like a judgment call many years ago. Like, nope, you're not going to do it. I'll do it for you. It's faster too. So yeah, it's interesting. And Marcella asked, what's the difference between digital and legacy banking?
Yeah, so I would say they're relatively similar. I think more Aslo was the kind of first like pioneer that really led the way. I think 1% of all business bank accounts in the US are actually opened on Aslo.
So some of the things to consider when you have this conversation of let's add or change our bank. The bank feed reliability, integration, whether it's going to work with QuickBooks or desktop, accountant, bookkeeper permissions, security, and I actually just went through this actually with Michelle, because we created, we decided this year we're going to make this official. We're going to make this a, QB Power Hour is going to be a real business and have a real business bank account. And I chose location because right next door is, a Chase Bank. Well, it was a half-hour drive for Michelle to go to the closest branch, and then COVID hit. And then there were these, that it was just almost impossible for her to make it over to the bank to be there. So when Yoseph reached out, I was like, we could do all this online. And in a half an hour, we had our business bank account set up online, which was just it was like the clouds finally parted. And then, other options of, fees and account limitations. Do they offer other services like bill pay and those types of things, expense management? These are all things to consider when it comes to, changing banks.
Real quickly,
so how do we
remember, I'm sorry, real quick, if I remember correctly, Lynda, when you were setting up your bank accounts for your for the proper trust, you actually set everything up to where when you flew into an event, you had to go to a specific branch to try to get something established, because in that adventure, you have a different partner in different cities, and it was
horrific.
Had to navigate all this stuff around to make it happen, right?
We did, and we both happened to have Bank of America. So Sarah just opened up Bank of America, made tons of sense. And when she opened it, I was in QuickBooks Connect. We met up. She handed me the FedEx envelope, went into the bank, and it took a long time. And then I wanted it added to my other accounts, so I'd have all one page. They wiped out all my bill pay.
Sorry.
It was awful. And then they not only wiped out my bill pay, they also wiped out all my automatic payments, which I didn't find out till like a month later that things weren't paid. So it was pretty bad. They fixed it all. I have to say, Bank of America did fix it all, but I don't have any relationship with anybody at Bank of America. I used to when I first moved here, but then they closed that. They've closed a lot of the places too. So you lose that. I mean, totally lose that part of it.
So yeah, when there's all these horror stories that that you could have, but when you're having this conversation with your client, these are kind of things that you would maybe think about starting that conversation. And Lynda, you were saying that fees is an easy way to start that conversation. You were saying that yesterday, right?
Exactly. I mean, I'll come into like a new client and I'll go through their records and I'll see all these bank fees, and some of them are like $35 a month. And for me, that's an advisory opportunity to go to the client and say, hey, I have another option. Nobody wants to move banks, but it can be done fairly easily to shift everything over. And usually the client, and you're looking at a lot of money, they don't really, they're happy to try to test the waters with changing banks to help alleviate the fees, because some of those fees can really add up. And if you can find a solution that there's no fees and an online access is really done well, and especially if it's connected well, because a lot of times it's the pain point, like they were talking about in the chat with Wells Fargo. We've had a lot of issues with Wells Fargo and PNC. Those seem to be two of the very popular ones with the law firms. And it's like across the board, I'll have like 7 clients where there's a problem and it'll all unhook, and then you have to go back and fix it. And I did not know, I did know that Wells Fargo kind of suspended all accountant access. So now I can't log in, and my team's like, hey, we can't get access. And I'm like, yeah, that's an issue.
And Yoseph, so the second bullet of reframing banking, where it's just not a place to store funds, like how would that, what would that look like when in that kind of conversation?
Yeah, I think it really all comes back to the client experience, and what are you trying to solve for your clients? Like it can't just be for your practice, right? And so there's a couple of ways that we see firms position a tool like Relay or a digital banking solution, and it's really around a problem set that a client has. So as an example, Relay's the first bank in the world to actually integrate into QuickBooks Online and automatically pull in unpaid bills, and you have approval workflows. And so solving those core bill pay challenges are a great way to kind of reframe banking. is saying it's not just the bank account that you experience traditionally with your Chase or Bank of America, but we can actually use banking to solve the financial visibility that you're struggling to get and solve those cash flow crises that you run into from time to time.
Yeah. And like here at the last part, what if you do nothing, what are the downsides of not changing? Are things just going to continue? Things are just going to continue, maybe not get better, or at least just stay the same. And what is that going to look like? And that's just a conversation that you end up having, during your quarterly meetings. So as we talked a little bit about what QuickBooks Cash is, we want to kind of give an idea of really just an overview of what it is, because it is a solution and a lot of people don't even know that it exists. So it's one of those kind of like soft launches that Intuit came out with. But the more I learned about it, it is a pretty powerful and robust tool, and it does have some advantages to actually use. So it is a business bank account. It does carry 1% interest. There is a debit card that you can use to pay expenses with. Instant deposits, and we'll talk more about these features, in a little bit. So you get instant access to funds. You can use those funds to bill pay and transfer. And then there's a cash flow planning tool where you can segregate money into envelopes. So if you have any Dave Ramsey fans out there, you know what an envelope is. So these are like digital envelopes to help you budget and plan for expenses that are upcoming. And with other accounts that are linked through your online banking, QuickBooks will actually give you a cash flow planner where you can play around with the future. QuickBooks in general is very good at a rear view mirror telling you where you've been, but very poor at a windshield seeing where you're going. So this is actually one of those tools that actually lets you see where you're going and play around with that.
Hey, Dan, real quickly before I go any further, can we dive a little bit deeper, try to explain what envelopes are, because this concept is definitely taking off more. Can we go a little bit deeper into what an envelope is?
Yeah, an envelope is, and I can demonstrate it, and I've got a slide on the envelope. So let's talk a little bit about instant deposits, and we'll address that. So what is instant? Instant means a lot to different people. Coffee, you throw it in the water, poof, it's coffee. Polaroid, sometimes takes a couple minutes to shake the picture, and then it's there. And then Instant Pot, I don't know if you've ever used an Instant Pot, but they are not instant. Takes like 20 minutes for it to just pressurize, right? So the way it works is that you set up your QuickBooks Cash account with your QuickBooks payments. So you have to define your QuickBooks Cash bank account as the funding source for QuickBooks payments. So when you send an invoice and somebody pays you, that's where QuickBooks Cash is going to be the funding source. Now, Instant is 30 minutes or less, and they're in the available funds. And once they're made available, you can then utilize those funds. There's no fee for this. And it can be scheduled to do instant deposits. That could be like a day of the week. So if you're using QuickBooks Cash as your funding source for payroll, if you're integrating your payroll in QuickBooks Online, you can schedule that instant deposit to be transferred automatically, so that you make sure you have the funds available for payroll. So what can you do with those available funds? You can just plan. There's a planner, and we'll talk a little bit about that. You could transfer between your real banks and QuickBooks Cash, or you can spend it. So it is a legitimate bank with an ACH, routing and account number. You can use it to pay auto pays. There is a debit card that comes along with it, or if you're using the QBO payroll, you can use it as a funding source for your payroll as well. So let's talk a little bit about those transfers and envelopes. So you can connect an external bank, or the funds are in QuickBooks Cash, and then you can transfer that to an envelope, which is really just a way for you to tell QuickBooks Cash that this money is going to be spent for something. So you're going to set it aside, whether it is for payroll or a car payment or just an upcoming, an inventory purchase. You can specify the use for that so that it's separated from your available funds, so that your cash flow is able to be more accurately predicted. And then we have a link here for the Intuit article about the envelope, so we can always go back in there and review that as we go on. So let's take a look at what QuickBooks Cash kind of looks like, because again, as an accountant, you don't even see the menu option. So it's easy to apply for. So you'll have this option on the left side called cash flow. Now, you will only see this if you're an admin user of the QuickBooks company file, and then not an accountant. So if you're invited as the accountant, you won't see this cash flow option. And before, if you already had, before yesterday at least, if you had a payments account already, you wouldn't see it either. So it was only available for new QuickBooks payments users and non-accountants. But I did go into my own personal file that did have a payments account already, and I was able to establish the QuickBooks Cash there. So that is something new. So when you apply, what you would be doing is applying for a QuickBooks payments account at the same time as QuickBooks Cash. So we just kind of go through the options here of filling in, and this is like a demo environment here.
So Dan, as you're filling this in, what I'm understanding or hearing is you would either need a QB payments account first, or you would need to be applying for a QB payments account at the same time. It's not available independent of the QB payments account.
Right.
And there's fees, right? So if somebody pays you with a credit card, you still have fees, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So the transactional fees for however those are being paid would happen, as that's how this is being paid for, through the transactional pay. So you would set up the debit card, and then you would accept, and then it would immediately go through and give you an idea of whether you're approved or not. If you had specified multiple owners, because it is a financial institution, you would have to put in that information as well. All right, and then this is what the cash flow center then looks like. Once you have your QuickBooks Cash available, you have a way to manage the QuickBooks Cash. You can send money to it, so you can fund it ahead of time, or you can just let the payments that are coming in from your QuickBooks payments fund the QuickBooks Cash as well. So you can manage the account, you can see the transactions. The debit card, you can reset the PIN right there from in there. Ask for replacement, or find an ATM. So all point ATMs, which are pretty standard for a lot of these types of banks. You can use those transaction free. I think you get 4 withdrawals without a fee, but once you have passed the 4th one using ATM, there's a small fee for that. Then we go back here.
One of the questions we've been asked, and I'm interested to learn about for both scenarios, is how do you handle cash? So if you have cash, if customers are giving you cash, you need to deposit cash. What do you do? Is there a place you go to? Do you go to an all point or such? So especially with Relay, I'd love to hear how they would handle that.
Yeah. That's a good point. Because
I can address it quickly if that'd be helpful.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So basically what we recommend when you're starting out with one of these digital banking solutions, whether it's QB Cash or Relay, really position it as a complement to the existing banking. Like even if you did want to do a full switch, you probably wouldn't do it overnight. And in the case of like cash heavy businesses, like we have Subway franchises, restaurants, bars, whatever, using Relay, they typically keep a local financial institution so they can deposit the cash quite easily and they just move the money across. In our case, it takes 1 business day for those funds to clear. Looks like it might take a little bit longer with QB Cash, but I'm sure they'll tighten up those timelines pretty quickly. So you would basically use them in conjunction and keep QB Cash or Relay as the main operating account.
Okay, so and just to clarify, to bring the point home for everybody that's watching, what I heard with that is you would still use a different bank for cash transactions. Cash would go in that way. You would then fund that cash into your other account, such as Relay, which could then be used for whatever you need to use it for. And the benefit of doing that is going to be the reduction of different fees and such that you would have to pay otherwise by making payments out to everybody else. So you end up saving money that way also. Is that correct?
Yeah, plus like financial visibility, basically.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. So don't be confused by the term QuickBooks Cash of actually using cash with QuickBooks Cash. So let's talk a little bit about and show the envelope. So this is the transferring of funds. So you would specify an amount, where it's coming from. You can choose your available QuickBooks Cash account or linked accounts that are set up, for the traditional banks, and then where it's going to. So in this case, they use the example of employee payroll, and then once that is finished, it will instantly. It'll take some time, 3 to 5 business days, for the actual money to come from Chase into QuickBooks Cash to be allocated for the payroll envelope. But if it was coming from the QuickBooks Cash, that would be just immediately available, and then that would then show up as an envelope. So as money comes in through QuickBooks Cash through payments, you can make those transfers so that what it will ultimately do is allow you to plan. And then down here at the bottom is where you have your other linked accounts, so the traditional banks as well. So on the planner side of things, this is where QuickBooks will actually be able to start to predict what your cash flow situation would actually look like. So it'll show you the combined balance of all of your linked accounts, and then in the future you can push that out, by 3 or 12 months, so that you can see that window. And then down here at the bottom, we'll have things that happened in the past, as well as upcoming. So again, with all these things linked with your bank feed, QuickBooks will then start to be able to give you some predictions based on what that QuickBooks or what your cash flow situation is actually going to look like out in the future. And you can add in.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If somebody signed up for QuickBooks Cash, where would they find it in their file? Like they got an invite, they filled it out, and they can't find it. Where is it actually located? It's on the left navigation bar, right? Under the business view?
Yeah, under that cash flow. You'll have
so it's not under banking at all?
Well, I'll actually have to look at that while Yoseph is talking. In my file, I was actually where it would show up. It should be in the banking section as well. But as far as the QuickBooks Cash piece of it, I'll take a look at that.
I'm just curious because I know it's business view specific because it's the client that sees it and we don't see it. So I'm wondering if maybe the login to might be causing it. If they logged in as the accountant and then navigated to their file that way, they won't be able to see it. They have to log in as the actual business owner on the account that they added it to, I would assume. Yeah.
And any admin user or the master admin will be able to see it. Only the person who signed up for it will be able to transfer funds. And then you can play around with new events so that you can see and see what what the cash flow situation would look like as hypotheticals, and then you can play around with those. So that really is a quick overview of QuickBooks Cash. Who is it for? Really, freelancers and solopreneurs, business owners who want to, burn the candle at both ends. They want to do it all. And then we have a link there for the QuickBooks Cash FAQs. So as you have questions about that, you can review that. And this is why it's so difficult for accountants to be able to help people with QuickBooks Cash, because you don't even see it on the navigation bar on the left side. So it'll be under the cash flow.
If we switch the view, I'm wondering if we switch, because you have the ability to toggle to the business view. I wonder if we can see it that way, or maybe not.
Yeah, that might be a good thing to try.
Yeah.
But let's ask the third poll question here. What has been your exposure to QuickBooks Cash? Didn't even know it existed. I saw it, but never really looked into it. A client asked me about it. I hate those conversations when the client asks you about something and you're looking at them like, what do you mean QuickBooks Cash? And while you guys are answering, I'm going to stop sharing so that Yoseph can pick up from here. Were there any other questions that you guys saw in the Q&A?
Somebody asked if the vendors is like bill.com. When you're paying a vendor, is it similar to like a bill.com when you pay out a QuickBooks Cash as a bill payment?
From what I saw, it's really just a matter of using the debit card or the ACH and then paying the vendor that way. I did see, bill pay, but I'm not sure if that terminology of bill pay, like we would think bill.com, where you initiate the bill payment from within QuickBooks, would actually send the actual money. You would go in to pay them with the debit card or the ACH.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be a feature that gets built out, but may not be right available just yet.
Bill.com has got an association as a premier app with QuickBooks, so I don't think they're going to be doing that level of it, because that's really for like a mid-market firm that needs all the approvals and all of that. So I would think that you're not going to see that because they've got it in place with Bill.com. A couple people asked about whether credit cards are not. QuickBooks Cash is simply a QuickBooks, and same thing with Relay, right, Yoseph? It's a bank account. It's not a credit card. Somebody was asking about, well, if you have that, then you will be getting a mortgage. You're not going to get mortgage or loans from that as well.
Right. That's accurate.
So let me share the results real quick. I saw it, but never really looked into it. It was top on the list, right up there with I didn't even know it existed. So definitely.
It's out of sight is out of mind, right? I mean, I have to be honest, I never really looked into it because in all my client files, I never saw it there. So I kind of thought it was something that was released, or talked about, but never released. So, but I think Relay is something tells me a third party actually doing this is going to provide a more focused direction towards it. So I'm really interested to see what Relay is offering so we can look at it for our clients. And hey, Lynda, I think we're going to get a Relay account, by the way.
Hey, yeah, that'd be good.
Awesome.
Good.
Cool.
So go ahead, Yoseph. Go ahead and take it from here.
Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna kind of speed through things, so I apologize if I'm going a little quickly. I'm just sensitive to time. So basically, short story. Worked at HubDoc for like 4.5 years. Saw all the pain points about bank statements, bank feeds, all of the kind of hairiness that's involved, MFA codes, sharing bank logins, all of it. Seen way too many notepads with clients' bank logins on it. I still suppress those memories or wake up in a hot sweat in the middle of the night. And so we started Relay basically with the view that the only way you can actually solve these problems is by being the business bank account. What if your bank account was deeply integrated into the core systems your business relies on? Could you increase financial visibility? Could you increase small business success? And could we do it with the lovely accounting and bookkeeping community that I've worked with kind of over the years? And so Relay is business banking that makes bookkeeping easy. 3 things that people love about Relay. One is you can actually collaborate on your banking securely. So you actually get your own partner portal. Like I saw a million questions about, can I actually access this as the accountant about QB Cash? Relay, you can access it. It's all really easy, really straightforward. 2, you can automate all your bills in minutes from anywhere. So we deep integration QBO, automatically pull in unpaid bills. You have approval workflows. It is pretty awesome. And then 3, you can increase visibility into business spending. So not only do you get one business debit card, you can have up to 50 with Relay. So it's really built as that kind of QuickBooks Cash on steroids type of approach, and really built for those businesses that are wanting to grow and scale and collaborate, not only internally, but also externally. Our wonderful friend, Blake Oliver of the Cloud Accounting Podcast, when he heard about our integration with accounting platforms and how we automatically pull in unpaid bills, by the way, the Cloud Accounting Podcast actually runs on Relay. They were like, this is how it should be. There should be a symbiotic relationship between banking and accounting. They should be connected. And this is really the future. So a quick comparison. One of our team, he's like, man, we can't just say they don't have it. We have to put like something to show that it's there some of the time for the traditional financial institutions. I don't know if that's clear that it's a half check mark, but that is the intention. So with Relay, you can open up to 20 checking accounts. You get no account fees, no minimum balances, no overdraft fees. You can pay vendors by ACH and check. You can also pay them by domestic wire and international wire for a small fee. You can manage team spending, issue dozens of cards instantly, just as I just mentioned. You can do everything either from your phone or from a web application. So we have a mobile app for iPhone and Android, as well as a very full-featured desktop application. And our NPS score, like our Net Promoter Score, is like an 82, which is very much industry leading. People love the product, which is great. And so this is really what the small business owner gets from a core like banking perspective. For accounting and bookkeeping firms, you get your own accountant bookkeeper portal, similar to QBOA. You get direct bank feeds into QuickBooks Online and Xero. So we're one of 8 banks in the US that actually has a direct bank feed. So there's no screen scraping, there's no dealing with MFA codes, there's none of that stuff. It's just software talking to other software, super reliable, super easy. You can provision staff access instantly and control their level of access, whether they just need read-only access or they need kind of bill pay kind of functionality. There's audit trails baked in. It's all super slick, it's super thoughtful in the way it's designed, and you can access statements. You get enriched transaction data. We have by far the best bank feed in North America, if not the world, because we actually spend that time to standardize merchant names, provide category information, and pass that across into QBO. And last, but certainly not least, you can actually automate bill pay through our integration with QBO with approval workflows, all baked in. And reconciliation is so dead easy because we're actually the bank feed. And I'll talk about kind of how that works. All right. I'm just ripping through this. I hope I'm not going to.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Can I interrupt you with a couple questions, or actually I'll wait until you're done with the rip through because you're doing great, and then we'll see if the questions still exist.
Perfect. All right. So comparing us to QuickBooks Cash, we think Intuit entering the space is actually really wonderful, to be perfectly honest. I think some people might be like, oh, that sounds scary. I think it's great. I think the pie will only grow. So a couple things. Yes, Relay is FDIC insured up to $250K. We can talk about our banking relationship, but that's the case, just like it is for QuickBooks Cash. You have a direct bank feed into QuickBooks Online, both for Relay and QuickBooks. As we talked about, accountant access is not yet available on QuickBooks Cash. You have to assume that they're going to get there, given how important the accounting and bookkeeping community is to Intuit. You get multiple checking accounts, multiple debit cards. With Relay, so as I said, up to 20 checking accounts. You can have up to 50 Relay, either physical cards or virtual debit cards. And collaboration is really dead easy with Relay, and automating bill pay is obviously a core focus. The things that we don't have that QuickBooks Cash is they offer a savings account with 1% interest, and they also offer instant deposit with Intuit Merchant Services. The nice thing with Relay is that we integrate into every merchant service available, as well as you can just link up to Gusto or QuickBooks Payroll all really easily, and it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and that's really what these things kind of feed into when they're Intuit branded services. The integration piece is really where Intuit excels at those type things. But you got to use everything in the wheelhouse, and when you're outside of that, that's where Relay comes in handy.
Yeah, like I think that's the core piece, right? It's very much that your small business owners that you're working with are using multiple solutions, multiple services. And it's unlikely that they're actually solely using Intuit solutions. And that's why, a solution like Gusto is so prevalent, is because of kind of how fragmented SMB is in terms of what solutions are used. So I'm going to do like the 120-second demo here. Oh my God. I don't think I've ever done it that fast before. We will see how this goes.
There is so much to show. And if you can stay, a little longer, we'll definitely, stay with us and I know understand other folks need to maybe drop off. But we are going to have this, be available on the YouTube channel for replay. So with relays replay.
Sweet. So as I mentioned, it's really banking designed for growing businesses. You can collaborate with user permissions. You can manage all your bills from your bank account, and you can manage your business spending. It's all FDIC insured up to 250K. Relays cards or MasterCards. So you get MasterCard zero liability policy. So if there's ever an unauthorized charge, we actually provide you with provisional credit, kind of go to war for you to get your dispute won. It's all really good and cool. So this is the Relay Partner Portal. We are collectively Skylar Hunting of South Boston Bookkeeping. We see a lot of firms sign up for Relay and test it out for their own firm. They kind of do the guinea pig test as we all kind of know it. You can sign up online inside of 10 minutes, no paperwork, no branch, no people, all really easy. Here you can see your client's account. So you've logged in with your own login. You can even set up 2FA for yourself and manage it yourself, but you, through your own login, have access to your client's accounts. You can invite clients into Relay. So I might have Jane at business.com. What we see more and more firms do is they on the note of differentiating and delivering extraordinary service for your clients, they actually have a lot of these documents that are required to set up the bank account available. And so they're like, you know what, I'm going to do most of the setup on behalf of Jane. And so, us as Skylar, they use like an email alias like this at southbostonbooks.com. And that just kicks out an email to their normal Skylar at South Boston email address, but it enables them to go through the registration process on behalf of their clients. It's really easy, really slick, and our support team is fantastic. So if you ever have any questions, we can support you there. Two, you can manage staff access from inside your partner portal, so you don't have to share one login or do anything like that. I can have Sean McGuire here, who's our assistant bookkeeper. We can see he has access to one client, and so he's got access to Henry's Hat Hut, read-only access. But let's get him working on a second client. So let's set him up with Stacy's Stationery. We can give him read-only access if he just needs to see transactions and statements and all that stuff. And then we can also set him up to be a bill payer. The nice thing here is because you have those approval workflows, he can only pay bills that have been approved. And two, anytime someone touches money inside a Relay account, there's always an audit trail attached. Even if it's just a transfer between Relay checking account A and Relay checking account B, you can see that it was Sean that initiated that transaction. Cool. So that is the partner portal. We've kind of covered a lot of the challenges around access to financial information, direct bank feeds into QuickBooks Online, actually having your own login and this user permission model so you can manage access with your staff. Now let's actually click into a small business account. So this is the small business view. So we have our balance, and having covered kind of that access issue, let's talk about quality of information. So we talked about checks being deposited and then them coming through as check 1, 2, 3, 4 inside of QuickBooks Online, and you got to ping the client, you got to ask these questions, maybe you have to get banking access, do all this work just to see the information that is there, right? They cleared the check, they have this, right? And so you actually get the payer's name, the amount, the date, who deposited it, an image of the check, as well as any notes or memos. We pass all of this information through the QBO bank feed minus the check image itself, but you can easily access it here.
Finally, thank you. Finally, thank you. I've never understood why that is not available. Thank you.
That's amazing, by the way.
And the nice thing with Relay is you can deposit from your phone. You don't have to leave your kitchen table to deposit a check. You can deposit up to $40,000 per day. So you're not really limited by traditional kind of banking options. And if you're a bigger business, you're like, hey, $40,000 a day is not enough for me. Come and talk to us. We have, kind of available options where we can better serve your business and increase those limits in certain cases.
Can you do IOLTA accounts someday, please?
Yeah, we get a lot of requests for that. I think that would be awesome. Yeah.
What if you have multiple check deposits? Do you deposit each check individually to get that detail, or how does that work?
Yeah, it would be individual check deposits.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Do you integrate with QuickBooks Desktop?
We don't, but you can export CSV and OFX files.
This is the
Video
biggest
files.
selling feature right here. This check on the screen. I gotta tell you, you just
deposit
won a lot
detail
of
is the
people.
biggest
Linda,
pain point that
Linda,
we
you're
have.
drooling.
I know. Oh, sorry. Oh my God.
We're kind of firing off these questions to you just because, I mean, obviously we've got this point where it's like, wow, you've just reached the pinnacle and everybody loves it. It's amazing. So everybody be sure to go check out Relay. It's relayfi.com is the website, if I remember correctly, right?
Yep.
And then, so with the other question has to do with depositing. I believe you just answered it. So we've got checks coming in, no problem there. It goes directly to it. One of the best questions I've seen here is, what are the limitations with Relay that you hope to solve in the near future?
So I think the biggest limitation would be that it's like a debit card as opposed to a credit card. If you're looking for a credit solution, Relay probably, like just for the card functionality, might not be the best option. We do have a lot of business owners that use us with their Amex or Chase card or whatever, because it's core banking, right? And maybe they want to automate AP as the core focus for themselves. So I'd say that's probably the biggest limitation.
But they could actually have those cards and arrange payments to those cards out of Relay, which means they would, in a sense, have the benefit of it for having a cycled account, right?
Automatic too, payments. That'd be perfect.
Yeah,
Somebody
and
asked,
you
why
can-
do you have a, oh, go ahead.
And you can have multiple debit cards and have spending limits on those debit cards.
Yeah.
So that's another way to actually, control expenses for
Divvy.
individual people.
Divvy card, you could use Divvy card and refund it. What was the other question? Somebody, why the 40,000 limit, which I think is really generous compared to some banks that you still have to ask. It's just, that's a number that you guys picked.
Yeah, I wish it was just the number we picked. So I think it's more that, when you work with a Wells or a Bank of America, it's a $5,000, $10,000 a day limit, right? And perhaps it's $5,000, $10,000 a month, candidly. So we chose 40,000 because we saw that we had customers that were depositing kind of around that figure. And we're now seeing even larger customers who are wanting to deposit 100K or 150K at a time. And so we're now kind of adjusting to enable like service for those businesses. We do those kind of larger check deposits on a kind of case-by-case basis in terms of making that available. Because when we looked at QuickBooks Cash, you saw that when they pulled in funds from your Chase account, Bank of America, it takes 3 to 5 business days.
Yeah.
We clear in 1 business day for deposited checks. We clear in 1 business day for kind of pulling those funds across from your external account. And that's basically us just being really good at kind of managing fraud around this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why it's kind of 40,000, but we're trying to manage it up.
So Matthew, when we get that account, you just make sure it's 40,000 or less that you put in it for me.
You got it. I mean, well, so, and it makes sense that if you've got something that's FDIC insured of 250K,
Exactly.
you can't do deposits of like $200,000 and still expect that insurance aspect of it, right? There's going to be a give and a take to that aspect, to that relationship. So, I mean, it's pretty common throughout institutions. The other question people are asking a lot, of course, are fees. And I believe we're looking at it on the screen here at the moment, but it's an important question. So if you can address fees to people real quickly, please.
Of course. Yeah. So you can have up to 20 checking accounts with Relay. So these are all separate checking accounts. You can create new ones just on the fly. It's really so dead easy. You name it, choose who should have permission to access it, and click create. And it's a real account number and routing number. There's no envelopes. There's no notion of kind of like this, theoretical or synthetic kind of separate accounts. You can actually have separate accounts. Like these all have their own account number and routing number. And it's no account fees, no minimum balances, no overdraft fees. The only thing you'll be charged for from like a core banking perspective is domestic wires outgoing are $10, international wires outgoing are $50, and that's it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. I know we've got a lot more questions. I'm sorry we can't get through all of them without keeping everybody here all day. But where is the best place for everybody to reach you, of course, right? And more importantly,
So in the chat, I put in the blog entry that we'll have in the landing page for today's webinar. So once it's available there, you'll be able to rewatch that, and any option as far as the being able to access the webinar handouts or the QuickBooks Cash FAQs or ways to reach out to Relay directly. are all available there. So I wanted to launch the last poll of, you know, how do you want to learn more today about Relay? And, you know, you got your options there. Praise be, how do I get started? You know, I've got more questions. I need a demo, those types of things. So go ahead and answer that poll question, and then we'll wrap this up. Did we have any other outstanding questions that you wanted to ask of Yoseph while he's here?
Good question. Do each of those accounts connect to QBO bank feed? So if you have 20 different accounts, what does that look like when it's coming into QBO?
Yep. So you'd have 20 separate checking accounts basically connecting to QBO.
Is it available in Canada where you are?
Or UK?
No, we're hoping Q next year. I know. Kills me.
Different banking system. Makes sense. Yeah.
So only US at this point?
Exactly.
And we got Sue said, I already opened up my account. Thank you, Sue.
Amazing.
I want one now too after seeing that check. I'm like, whoa, every client, let's go.
Security was this was a question was asked multiple times. So quickly explain security for yours in comparison to traditional banks, please.
Sure. So we do third-party like independent security audits and penetration testing once a quarter. And then 3, you have real 2-factor authentication. So you use Google Authenticator, LastPass. So it creates a one-time password every 30 seconds. And then also we track all like session activity. And by the way, 30 seconds is as a second factor of authentication. So once we see your device and recognize it and you're like, hey, remember me for 30 days, we don't bug you. It's all really easy and clean. And then we have a log of everyone who has logged in at any time and where they have logged in. And that's actually available to you inside of your settings. So you can actually see session activity.
Any referral links?
Absolutely. Those will be shared in the chat. If not, we will follow up with you.
Absolutely. And they're all on the landing page there for you with the webinar replay on the QB Power Hour website. So Yoseph, I really want to thank you for coming on today, and Lynda and Matt for joining us today and having this discussion about something that is so important for people in our industry, and how Relay can solve a lot of those headaches and challenges that we have. So we do give Michelle our best. We're always thinking of her, and we will see you next time on the Power Hour.